Welcome back to 90 Feet Away. Today I have an incredible guest, Jeremy Bleich, 2008 first-round draft pick by the New York Yankees. What an incredible story for him to not only get to the big leagues after dealing with injury, but then finding his way through a 10-year career in baseball, which led him to the World Baseball Classic and finishing his career in the 2021 Olympic Games. Stay tuned. Welcome back to 90 Feet Away. Today I am joined by an incredible human being, long-time journeyman through the game of baseball, Jeremy Bleich. Jeremy, thank you for being with us today.
Holtz, thanks for having me. I know we've been trying to make this work. This is something cool that I think you've gained momentum with. I wanted to be on this a couple weeks ago and kind of had to annoy you to get me on here. So
No, dude, life happens. I mean, you're busy doing your thing. Proud daddy of a new baby boy, which is awesome. So you got a lot going on, but we appreciate your time. I want to start with mom and dad. So dad, Stan is a New York boy. He's a Brooklyn guy. Where's mom from? Where's Carolyn from originally?
mom's from also from New York, Flatbush area. Both kind of Brooklynites, really. Very different people. My dad passed away in 2014. That was a big part of my life. I'm sure we'll get into, but yeah, mom's also from New York. There's definitely New York in me. I'm sure that kind of rings home with you. It gives you a good laugh as we talk about some of my personality. But yeah, parents both from New York. A lot of family still in New York, so there's strong ties there.
My question is, how do two people from New York find their way to Louisiana?
Well, my dad, I think always wanted to be a physician. Went to at least the beginning of med school in Mexico. Couldn't get into medical school in the United States. Picked up Spanish. My mom spoke a little Spanish, and they moved to Monterrey, Mexico, I believe, for 2 years. Came back, and my dad did his residency at Mount Sinai, and then fellowship in New Orleans at Tulane. So my brother and sister are both older, and they were born in New York. I was the Southern charm, I guess, born in New Orleans. So that's why we ended up in New Orleans.
It's such an interesting thing to me, because again, back then, to have supplanted New Yorkers find that just so wild. So you're born in Louisiana. Obviously, the young Jeremy Bleich is a stud baseball player. We're going to get into all that stuff. When did you think you were a little bit different, Jay? Like, was it 8U? Was it 12U? Like, when did you start standing out?
Probably like I'd say maybe nines and tens. Maybe it's kid pitch. Whatever age that was, probably around 10. I just started to really kind of throw harder than other guys. I still had self-doubt. I probably didn't share that as freely. I probably also benefit from being the third child. My parents didn't push me as much, or at least I didn't feel that. There was a lot of like, hey, do what you want to do and have fun doing it. We're gonna work hard. We're not gonna take this lightly, but I never got like, the hey, you gotta play baseball, or you gotta be a doctor, or you gotta do this. I would say though, when kids started pitching to each other, I remember vividly like someone telling me, yeah, you're throwing in the 70s. Like I think it was like low 70s as like a 12-year-old or 13-year-old, and now I don't know how that even ranks, but back then from the left side, it was firm. So that's when I think I remember.
No, it's still pretty legit. I mean, it's still very legit. That brings me to something else with Stephen and Lauren. Were they athletes as well before Jeremy Bleich?
No, you mean my siblings?
Yeah.
No. My brother played baseball. He played some sports. I think kind of phased out as he got to towards the middle of high school. I think my sister played some volleyball, but there was never like sports driven like it was for me. They I think opted to go to summer camp I opted to play baseball. So not a huge athletic, push within the family.
So based on that, being the youngest kid, did mom and dad really kind of know what to do with you? Because that normally as the third kid, if the other two are athletes, it's kind of like we've been there, done that. For a kid like you who was really driven as the youngest kid, what was that like for mom and dad? What was that like in Louisiana?
Um, I don't think they knew what to do with me. I think my dad worked so damn much that my mom sort of was shuffling me around town or shuffling me to baseball tournaments. Credit to her. I think she just wanted me to be happy. I think looking back now, she just wanted me to be happy. She wanted me to probably, not struggle, take things seriously, but also, commit to something, right? Like ultimately it didn't matter what it was, but commit to something. My dad, he worked a ton, especially my early years. As baseball picked up, my dad, when he was still alive, he would always tell a story that he was interventional cardiologist, so he would do like cases in the cath lab. And I think early on in high school, before I like really started the games team, and my dad really had an even stronger commitment to be at games, he would call from the cath lab. He would call my mom. Nurses would be holding the phone up to his ear, like, "How's Jeremy doing?" My mom would say, "He's got 5 hits today." 5 hits? Really? Yeah, yeah. He hit the ball 5 times. So my mom, absolute sweetheart. I think she didn't, to answer your question, like, did she know what I was doing? Did she know that I was a good, she didn't really know. I don't think she really cared. She just didn't want, she wanted like to be a protective maternal figure. And that's all she wanted.
But you know what? Like, those are things that I talk about today a lot on this podcast. Your mom is an incredibly special lady. What we want for our kids doesn't matter, right? We want them to be happy. We want them to be healthy. We want them to commit to something.
Hmm.
But it's not about our journey. It's about your kids, and we want our kids to be happy. And so she was an incredible conduit, and every time you put a ball in play, it was a hit. I love her for that. Jeremy Bleich is now, through his, early little league, early, high school baseball. Are you that kid? Like, I don't know what school is like in Louisiana. Like, where the school's big, were you pushed up to like varsity baseball right away? How did that work for you, JB?
As far as I can remember, Legion was big. American Legion ball was big. I think in eighth grade, I was rehabbing an elbow injury with our high school coach, Billy Fitzgerald, who's still a really strong, pillar in my life. Um, and he was sort of like rehabbing me in the mornings, and then I was starting to go to like basically what would be varsity American Legion games, at night. And I started to pitch in those games as like a freshman, or going into my freshman year. I was sort of already playing on the varsity baseball team. So I think by my freshman year, I was part of the varsity team and a big part of the competitive lineup there, playing in the field, pitching a little bit. So that was when I can remember, like from an early age. Um, that's kind of where I started to say, well, wow, there's some guys that are bigger and stronger and more athletic than I am, and I got a ways to go. So that was kind of the time.
But you're now, I'm going to go like fast forward to like 2004, 5. You're on your high school team. You're on your varsity team. You're ranked. I mean, like you're being looked at by a bunch of colleges. I think in 2005 you were like an All-American, first team All-American by Louisville Slugger. Baseball America had you like third team All-America. What was it like for you? Because things today are totally different, like in the recruiting process. When did, it's crazy today, but when did you know you were kind of special, Jay?
Never. I never probably had. uh, I think I started to get looks from teams, from college teams. They would show up and watch me play. There was some, there were like I remember, I don't know if it was July 15th, or there was a time when teams could start to call, and my dad, made me take notes of who called and when they called, and that was the businessman physician in him. But I think a junior year, I think, is when it started to kind of take off. Um, Tulane, LSU started to get a little bit heavy, and then they kind of turned into a little bit more national attention through like showcases. I think this is like just when some of these like showcases started to really surface within the industry, and that's sort of the time, like junior year, or heading into senior year, or junior summer was kind of a big summer for me.
Were you doing like perfect game stuff? Did they have
Yeah,
that?
I think that was exactly when it first started. Around then, it was just like, I know it's a much bigger thing now. I don't have a ton of awareness, but you kind of see it here and there. I did a couple perfect game things. I played with some like travel teams, but yeah, a little bit of everything.
What amazes me about guys like you, and I don't want you to stop blushing, but what I try to impress on every kid that I have the pleasure to work with is not only taking baseball seriously, taking your academic life seriously as well, because you end up committing to Stanford University, which means you're not a dummy. How much of an impact did that have on your decision making to commit to a school like Stanford? What other schools were really at the top of your list at that point, Jay? Like, considering that there were a lot of people in the mix, what made you choose Stanford?
I think other schools wise, so Tulane, LSU were in there. I talked to Rice, I talked to Vanderbilt. I think I talked to USC in California. Um, and then I remember my dad telling me, I was like typical high school kid. I didn't have a vision for bigger things. My dad was like, if you get a chance to go to Stanford, you need to go to Stanford. And I just said, okay, like, well, there's some trust there, but I don't fully understand the concept. But I remember getting on campus and looking around and seeing the people that were way better at things than I was. Like I thought I was a good baseball player, a solid high school baseball player. They were, classmates of mine that were Olympians prior to entering school. They were, classmates of mine that were from all over the world. They were everyone there certainly, academically could kind of hold themselves. But there was something else. There was another skill set that they brought to the table that was, if not great, it was extraordinary. And I think that was at the moment, I remember looking back and telling my dad, like, this is what you're talking about, right? Talking about this network of people who all share a common bond in maybe academia. And then there's also this other thing that, skill set that you would never know with them walking on campus, but it'll blow you out of the water once you find out.
So it was pretty incredible. Again, your dad not being involved in baseball, but the foresight, right? And the
Yeah.
understanding. And you're going to do the same for your kids, right? You're going to help them to understand these things that later on they're going to come to appreciate. You walk in the doors of Stanford, like, what's your role right away? Are you a starter? Are you a reliever? Are you just happy as a freshman to get some burn? Where are you?
I actually hit a little bit in the fall. That was hilarious. I saw 92s and 93s. I said, "There's no way I can do this." I think I got like hit one double in fall practice, and I think I closed my eyes and hit it, and didn't tell anyone that, but
So you
that's
went
how
to
I got it.
Stanford thinking you were going to be a two-way.
Correct. And
Wow.
then the reality set in, and then I think coach, like, traditionally, first of all, you got to be really really good, and secondly, I think my pitching was beyond where my hitting was at that time. And so from there, I think I started my freshman year out as a reliever. I was closing. In fact, my first handful games were relief appearances. And I think I made my first start like middle of the season, but we had a pretty competitive team, and um, I think it helped me because it allowed me to like understand just like how be aggressive in zone as much as possible, and in short stints. So I was protected by a little bit by like, protected a little bit manually just by exposure. Like, going for one inning is easier than going for six or seven, and then sort of shifted into a starting role from then on out, in my career. But I remember stepping on campus and getting to fall practice and said that same awareness, like, man, there's some good baseball players.
Right.
I've never heard this guy's name, but he throws harder than I do. Or never heard this. Our catcher's, his fifth year, and he's a grown man. I'm a kid. But he's on my team. So
Right.
I'm sure there's guys like this on other teams too. I think there was definitely an eye-opening experience.
Playing at Stanford, I mean, it's pretty big time baseball. Had you played in front of crowds like that, or like were you prepared for that? What were your nerves like, I'm just locked in and I'm playing baseball. It doesn't
No, I
matter.
mean nervous for sure. You're still like unsure, right? Like there's this doubt. There's this doubt in you that you small doubt. I think like skill set wise, you're like, okay, I could do this, but can I do it consistently enough? When you start to get into these higher levels of baseball, the ecosystem sort of like self filters, right? The talent, there's not going to be someone there that just like, oh, this guy doesn't belong. I can't understand why this guy's here talent wise. You usually can sort of justify. The thing that is harder to see is the consistency, and those are the guys that they kind of self regulate. I remember going into my freshman year, there are plenty of guys on my team that you're like, man, these are going to be all stars. These are going to be big leaguers. These are going to be whatever you think, whatever they want to be, they can be. And I remember asking myself, like, how is this gonna work out? Like, there's 15 guys that can play. How are they gonna how are we gonna get down to 9? How are we gonna get down to 3 starters on a weekend? And then you start to see life take over, right? You start to see distractions off the field. You start to see um, other stuff going on, and you're like, oh, this is life. Like, this is the first glimpse into what like life is. So I remember that moment vividly. I hang on to that actually quite a bit.
I mean, it's such a big thing, Jay. We talk about that all the time. Everybody is an all-star in here when nobody's trying to strike you out and there's no batter, right? Everybody's bullpen looks phenomenal, and then we transfer onto the field, and then we transfer into a big spot on the field. We're going to talk about it later, but I talk about even the Olympic team. One of my things was knowing who wanted that baseball in the 9th inning and who didn't. There were definitely guys that did not want the baseball. You were never one of them. You wanted the baseball every day, every minute, and I loved you for that. When the lights go on, who are you? Right? And then you talk about the distractions and who's having girlfriend problems and who may be suffering in the classroom. Those are really the differentiators to me, as you talked about those guys getting to the next level. It's just wild. You go to the Cape Cod League. Are you finished your sophomore year going into your junior year, or was it
Freshman year? But I went 2 years. 2 years.
Wow.
So I went
Wow.
freshman and sophomore year to Cape Cod.
Freshman year, you got a full contract, not a 10-day.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
you really were kind of special. Holy cow. So your first year, what's that like? I mean, because now you're playing against like every top player in the country.
Yeah. Not a worry in the world. I think I actually was an all-star that year in Cape Cod as a like freshman going into my sophomore year. And I just didn't there was just no concern. Like I think freshman year of college in general was probably my most carefree um, year of my life. Fun. It doesn't mean I went off and did crazy stuff all the time. We had fun, certainly. I just didn't. I was in this middle ground. I was in the middle ground of like I was sort of starting to come into my identity as a person. Um, Being at Stanford, like really generating a strong core group of friends helped. And then you also don't have a full concept of like what's next or life beyond that, or I lost my dad, right? I had no concept of like the next phase of life. So high school wise, very focused on baseball. Socially, probably like wasn't as concerned. You know, that was like high school. Beyond my freshman year in college was that the pressure started to heat up, but my freshman year was very, very loose, very, very not carefree, just like relaxed,
But
fun,
you were a
enjoying
kid.
life. And
I mean,
and I was a
you were a
kid.
kid.
I was 19. I think I turned 19, and I dealt. I dealt as a result. I had fun doing it. I didn't care who I was facing. I just went out and competed and enjoyed my time there. So
I want to get into more of that, but for me, did it ever not become fun, Jay? Was there a point where it got just like too serious? The business part got too serious?
well, I think I always, and I've referenced this a few times. I don't want to overdo it for the show, but I think like you know losing my dad was a pivotal moment in my life. So pre that, there was a lot of expectation, self expectation. Even going into my next year in the Cape, I said, in my head, I remember thinking like, I got to be just as good. I got to be better, right? Instead of being just the same guy, just I got to be better. There's built-in expectation there, and then you start to move into your junior year, the draft. Team commits to you. They commit financially to you. They commit a runway of opportunity to you. There's expectation. If from a moral compass, I have I have a competitive side. You also know I have I'd like to believe there's a good human in me too, and I want there's an accountability, there's an allegiance, there's an appreciation for like the draft and the commitment that was made to me, and so there comes pressure, right? I want to prove it to myself, I want to prove it to my family, I want to prove it to those around me that I am who they think I am, and that creates there is some like frustration there when things don't go your way, injury. That was pre my dad, so I'll stop there.
So you're getting a lot of interest now, junior year, big year, draft year. You're drafted in the first round by the New York Yankees, which in itself is just, I have no words for. I mean, that's a team I've been following, as your dad. My dad was a huge influence in my life. He actually saw Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig play baseball, so I had no choice. I was a Yankee fan through and through. What was that like? You're basically told you're one of the best in the country at doing what you're doing. You're being paid to do that. What are the emotions like being drafted in 2008 for Jeremy Bleich?
I mean, surreal, right? Like my dad grew up a huge Yankees fan. We grew up Yankees fans as kids. I went through an injury earlier on in early in the junior year, and I kind of got through that. It was a messy year, but totally honored, totally appreciative, totally excited. Every word you could ever use. It was a life-changing moment. I remember. I think my dad had awareness that I was going to get like right before that get picked, but he did not tell me. We were at Cal State Fullerton. They were about to play in the Super Regional the next day, and he was kind of dealing with my agent at the time. And when I heard I got drafted was when they announced it on ESPN. That was the first time I had heard it. So that was kind of a cool moment. And it was a blur. The whole thing was a blur. Like it happened so fast, but.
And you still played in the Super Regional, so you got to concentrate on
yeah.
right?
I think I pitched the next night. So ramp ups back then are not what ramp ups are today. I think I went from like no throw to 1 inning to 4 innings to 6 innings. That was my ramp up in 3 weeks.
So crazy.
Yeah,
so crazy.
But yeah, it was a crazy moment.
So I'm going to go into something really good and then something not so good. So 2009, you are the number 9-ish prospect in all of baseball. Everybody loves you. You attack the zone. You got a live, firm fastball, mid-90s, changeup's disgusting. And then we go to 2010 and you tear your labrum.
Yeah. Brutal. Some of it's a blur. Some of it's very, very clear. I think, just started to feel like I could not feel the baseball properly, like at release. I could tell something was wrong with my shoulder. And like there's huge emotions that sit in, like feel like I let people down around me, feel like I let myself down. How the hell am I ever going to come back from this? What do I do next? Like, is this journey really going to be that long? Like, I just started it. It feels like it's over. What do I do? Looking at the big picture, there's just no way to complete the task, right? I had to like break it down into, months, into weeks, into days at times. It was that hard. So really I was starting over. I went from, being in Major League camp with the Yankees in 2010, the year after they won the World Series, to being, back at the complex, spring training complex with, rehabbing, not being able to play catch at 60 feet. A couple months later.
What did you use to get yourself through this? Now, obviously, you have a tremendous support group in your family. What helped you get through this stuff, Jay? I mean, this is, as serious an injury for a thrower as there is. Today, Tommy John, it seems like people are getting it done like they clean their teeth. But a labrum for a pitcher is a little bit more different, a little bit more serious.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even really hear about shoulder surgery anymore. I think a lot of people just try to rehab it and go to PT, and they just avoid shoulder surgery at all costs. How did I get through it? A combination of a lot of things. Self-discovery, growing up, a few select friends that were really, really consistent with how they made me feel. It really is about not what people say, it's how people make you feel. And I still have, two or three people during that process that have been the same person in my best of days and in my absolute worst of days. And those are the people that get you through it, right? Like when you don't know what to say or what to do, you lean on the people that are around. And a lot of people were not around anymore. When the shit gets tough, people disappear. That's not a knock on anyone. Like we've all been guilty of that, right? It's just real. Like that's the way of life. And you sort of like accept the support, and then you vow to say, like, I'm going to be that guy for someone else.
And then you figure out who your ride and dies are, right? Like throughout life, like who are those people? And you're lucky that you have, on two hands, some people on one hand. So it takes you a bit. I mean, let's fast forward to 2012, and we're starting a comeback. I mean, you're actually voted Comeback Player of the Year. You get back on the field, like, again, now we go from the lowest of emotions back to, like, feeling real good about yourself. Are you the same guy?
No, not at all. Similar, but not the same. Like stuff-wise, actually, I got better or just the same. But I think there was there was like a scab somewhere in me that just, like, those things don't really go away, right? Like you patch them up. It's a scab. It heals over time. You can't rush time, right? So you're like counting the days, but like, I think it slowed down at that moment. It slowed down a little bit for me, I would say. Not a lot, but a little bit. And I just started to try to have a little bit more fun with the game. Obviously, like those who had been drafted with me had been at upper levels already. They'd have already moved on. So now I'm sort of like an older guy with younger minor leaguers, who you start to connect with or, find your personality with. And I hung on to that, I tried to hang on to that to sort of distract myself from like the bigger picture.
You stay with the Yankees, and then you're traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates in, I think it was 2014, if I'm not
15.
2015. Yeah. Did you feel betrayed by the Yankees? Like, what is your feeling at that point? Or do you just, like, you're mature enough to understand the business side of this? Like, where are you?
No, definitely not betrayal. I mean, they stuck with me for a long time, and there are a number of years that I didn't do anything, right? They stuck with me for a long time. I sort of probably I improved, and I got to AAA with them, and I had some good spurts, but not good enough to pitch in the big leagues for them. And they were awesome to me. They cared for me as a human being in some of my worst times as a professional baseball player.
Again, coming back from being repaired, did you care what your role was? Like it seemed like you were more of a middle guy and weren't in a starting role, and that kind of went forward, from the Pirates to the Phillies. I know I think it was 17 with the Diamondbacks. Like, I think you had a great spring, and you were released the last day of spring training for the Diamondbacks. What's going through your head? How are they using you? Are they using you properly? Or are you just like, I'm looking for a job, so like however they want to use me, they use me. How's that going?
It was day to day. I mean, for the most part, I think I have like clarity looking back now working in the game and understanding. Times I thought that I wasn't getting a fair chance. Times I thought I was getting too fair of a chance. They were being too lenient on me. I mean, that's for the most part. Like as you get older and you're not closer to the big leagues, like you're probably not getting a starting position in the minor leagues because there's allocation of resources, right? Like we're going to give reps to guys that we've either committed, financially to, or we believe have more upside, younger, right? Like health is highly correlated with age, and I think like I don't see that as a knock. I saw it as I'm left-handed. Probably can last a little longer being left-handed, especially as a reliever. So let's push on this. I think for the most part, as time went on, like I was just appreciative that I got to compete and like help teams win throughout the minor leagues. But it started a merry-go-round, as you're probably going to get into right now. Like team-wise, there was a merry-go-round.
I'm not going to get too crazy with it, but you played for a bunch of teams. You had a bunch of opportunities. I think you as a person had a lot to do with it. Being lefty, obviously, there's not enough good lefty pitching. But it went from the Diamondbacks to an opportunity with the Dodgers. You finally got a chance to make it to the bigs and pitch to the bigs for the Oakland A's. And that's like 10 years from when you got drafted. That's 10 years. Like, people don't understand when we talk about their journey and how much work you have to put in. They're talking about from 9th grade to 10th grade. Yeah, you worked your ass off for a year. God bless you. You literally busted your ass for 10 years for one opportunity to go pitch with the Oakland A's. How you feeling when you finally got there, Jay? Because, I mean, I don't care how the rest of your journey went and where we are today. Yeah, there had to be some sort of deep breath, looking up at the sky, talking to your dad and said, I made it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, how did I feel? I don't know. It was a box to check at that point. Do I think I could have pitched longer in the big leagues? Yeah, sure. Did I ever get to like Jeremy Bleich, the true competitor? Like, did I ever get to that comfort zone in the major leagues? No. But I'm great. I'm very grateful that I got the opportunity. I think like at that moment, it was something that like I needed to get a major league jersey on my back for me, first and foremost, not for anyone else. I think at the beginning of my career, I was probably trying to please others. At the end of my career, I was really trying to please, like, give myself, gratification, find that self gratification, because there's just a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and most people don't even know about them. Like, I don't share them that often. I think they come out in my personality. They come out in how I connect with people, or the accountability I hold others to, or try to hold myself to. But in the moment, like, just to say I put on a big league jersey and participated in a few major league games, like that was something that like, yeah, I hold on to that, no doubt. Like I'm not going to hide that, but I don't talk about it a ton, but I hold on to it for sure in my core.
People don't understand, kids look at professional athletes in every sport, and they don't understand that they're not Superman, right? They're human beings. These are guys that have emotions, sick family members, a kid with a cold, there's stuff going on. And for me, knowing what it took for you to get there for 10 years, that self-gratification for me is something that I hope you'll carry for the rest of your life, because it's confirmation. It's confirmation for everything that you were from that little kid in Louisiana and, till what you do today, because I know you're excellent at what you do now. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Not many people can say they were a first-round draft pick, professional baseball player, not only included, a guy. You were a dog in the World Baseball Classic. Several times for Team Israel. When you thought your baseball journey was over, it was like The Godfather, dude. We like you're trying to get out, and like we're sucking you back in. What was that like? What was the first World Baseball Classic like for you?
Unbelievable. I mean, we sort of touched like 10 years or whatever, got to the big leagues and was part of a team. I also like, yeah, certainly I wanted to put on a major league jersey for just for myself. It had been so hard at times. I really wanted to accomplish. I accomplished that. I thought I would maybe get another opportunity. I continued to pitch well, like at least in the the short term after my call up, and then I started to feel my like the days just got longer for me. Like when I was back in the minor leagues, the days got longer and just got harder. And then um, Team Israel opportunity, kind of came about, and all of a sudden there was like it was meant to be. Like I was gonna sort of finalize my career in a team setting, like a team setting where it didn't matter like about me. It didn't matter about prospect value. It didn't matter about anything but like literally scoring more than the next team and helping the other guys around me do that. So it was, I mean, we went to Korea. It was just so connected and so, um, so underdogish. I think that was just a really, really incredible cap. I know sort of we went to the Olympics together and all just incredible experiences that like sometimes I pinch myself. My wife jokes with me. She's like, you don't even talk about going to like you play in the Olympics. Like, why don't you talk about that? I said, that's not anybody else's weight to like, they don't want to hear me talk about it. But I sometimes have to like tell myself that, it's a it was a very special experience.
You know what, Jay? It's very interesting for you to say that because um, not as much as you, but I've done some special things in this game. And my younger son, Brett, I think you've met Brett, kind of got screwed through COVID and lost his last 2 years at Columbia. So I sent him to the Czech Republic to go play pro ball for a year before he was going to mature and get a job. And he goes there, he kills it. They win a championship. And it's literally the night before he's flying home. And I go, Bud, what are you doing? And he said, Dad, I'm just sitting in the stadium alone. I'm reflecting on this incredible experience that I've had. And he turns to me as the son and goes, do you do that at all? And the truth, Jeremy, is I have never once in my life thought about that type of deep thinking because it's like, all right, now what? Now, what's next? And where do we go? And your wife is right. It's an incredible experience, and it's an incredible journey. How many people can say they were a pro ball player, they played in the World Baseball Classic, oh, and by the way, I was an Olympian? How many? I mean, maybe on one hand you could count those people. It's kind of crazy. For me, an ultimate blessing because I got to meet and spend time and share passion and love with guys like you, which I will be forever grateful for. One of my biggest, and I have to shout out the Pittsburgh Pirates here because you're out of baseball getting ready for the Olympics, and the management of the Pittsburgh Pirates allowed Jeremy, for the audience, they allowed Jeremy to go live against Pirate hitters to get him prepared to come pitch in Tokyo, which, man, I couldn't thank them enough for doing that. And I just thought it was like the most cool thing and just such a badass thing by the Pirates. Let's talk about today, Jay. You have been referred to as an analytics whiz. You're like a hybrid. Yeah, look at you shaking your head. No, right? He's not going to take the accolades. I have a pretty good idea of what you do for the Pirates. Last week we had Kinsler on, and that was a really interesting conversation to hear what he's doing now for the Texas Rangers as well. Can you share with the audience kind of what your daily role is with the Pirates organization?
Yeah, definitely. No, the Pirates have been great. I was really, really, appreciative that they not only allowed me to go to the Olympics, but like pushed me to go to the Olympics. Our manager, general manager, they were just there was just never a blink of an eye. Like you got to go do that. Right now, I sort of in like a Cliff Notes version, just support and push development, deployment support of anything pitching related really in the upper levels for the Pirates. Big leagues, AAA mostly. Um, Anything that relates to anything pitching, I sort of guide and support our group on. It can be acquisition, it can be skill development, anything. So right now, I think we have a ton of talented arms working through our system, and it's a credit to the people we have within the organization, and just continuing to push those guys. I mean, we we have to sort of hit on young arms, and I think we're just starting to do that. We're starting to build a culture around that. Culture is super important, right? You want to create an environment where there's a turnkey essence to it. I think we've really started to do that. So anything pitching related in the upper levels, I'm sort of heavily involved in. It's been really fun so far, and want to continue to try to learn, and always learning and always pushing.
Are you doing advanced work for them as well, or no?
No advanced work. I'm more so just like general support. I'm not like 30,000 feet, but I'm not on ground either for our major league staff. I'm sort of in a 5 to 10,000 foot view, able to kind of look into front office activity and participate there, and also luckily have some participation influence just within the clubhouse itself. So a little bit of a hybrid role in that sense.
So the last piece of the puzzle for me about Jeremy Bleich, you were blessed with the most beautiful wife and now a gorgeous son. Where do you go next? Like that was a big piece for me, because you were just too good of a human being to go through this journey alone, and finding someone, your soulmate, like just made me happy inside. No, truly, dude, there were certain people, you were meant to be a dad. Like you were just a caring, loving, passionate guy. You were meant to be a dad. What's next for you, Jay? Like, do you want to be a big league on the ground pitching coach? Do you want to be in a front office? Where are you trying to go with this, Jay?
Anywhere. I don't have a specific goal in mind. I think that you mentioned family. That's a big part of it. My wife is, she keeps me on ground. I think my biggest strengths are also can be weaknesses, and she really pushes me to balance. She really pushes me to strive for balance, and I think that's something that throughout my baseball journey I struggled with. It was extremes. It was extreme goods, extreme, downs. And so like I look at baseball, at least as a player in the game, I look at it as like it's a life lesson. I know it sounds kind of like corny, but it is. Like, don't try to please others. Make sure you take care of yourself, not in a selfish way, but like make sure you have what you need in your heart. Make sure your family and those closest to you have what they need. And then the leftover stuff, make sure you give back to the community. Make sure you give back to the game. Make sure you give back to those who are less fortunate. There's a balance there. And so family wise, with a new baby boy, new son, seeing his smiles every day, that's another form of balance. But I think in terms of baseball, just continue to try to help the Pirates win. Hopefully that has a lot to do, we believe that a lot of that will have to do with our pitching. So I'm grateful for the opportunity and the platform to be able to like kind of push that and help. We have a great major league pitching group. We have a great pitching group within the organization, and just continue happy to be a part of that. But in terms of like what's next, I found that when I look too far ahead, I don't feel as comfortable. So I do look ahead. I just try not to as much and try to like conquer the days, because that's my sweet spot. That's my balance. And I need to live there more often than not.
I love that, because at almost 59 now, one of my greatest answers to my wife is I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And I swear to you, and I try not to look, a year, it's tomorrow. What do I have to do tomorrow? And maybe it's not even tomorrow. What do I need to do to get through today? And then we'll plan tomorrow. And again, it's such a parallel with baseball, because I can't control tomorrow. why am I going to worry about that until I get there? And it just mirrors life. And I think that's why baseball is so appealing to us, because it mirrors everything we do on a daily basis. I will tell you that you are not the black sheep of your family, because your brother and sister are doctors and took after daddy. You have used your Stanford education for all of the analytics stuff that you're doing, because to me it's foreign language, and I hate it, by the way. But I love you, and I love that you spent some time with us, man. And like I said, Jay, I will forever cherish the time we spent together, and truly that I can call you a friend and almost like a son to me, because that's how I feel about you. So thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for everything over the years, man. It's been fun. I think you got to see me, or at least like we got to be get to know each other during a part of my life that unknown, right? Like, and you really get to know someone when they're going through transition. Transition is hard. Change is hard. And I think there were times when, and I'm going to share the story because I know you'll get a laugh at it. I think the first time we met, like the second day we met, I was like in a game in Germany, and you came out to take me out of a game, and I said, "Get back in the dugout." And my teammates looked at me like I was crazy. And what I did was crazy. Like I did it out of,
Being a competitor.
Being a competitor. But like, you take that moment in isolation and vacuum, and you're like, this guy's out of control. But you take it and you put it with the whole nother piece of me. And I think over time it made sense, and
Sure.
I think you've always allowed me to kind of encouraged me to be myself, and like appreciated that, and positioned and platformed me to kind of, not even influence you positively, and influence like our team positively. And I'm forever grateful for that. So thank you.
I appreciate that, dude. If we were starting game 1 today and you're healthy, you get the baseball, Jay.
We'll see if I can move my shoulder.
We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for being here, kid.
Thank you for everything.
Go check us out at 90 Feet Away Podcast or 90feetaway.com. You can check us out on Apple Music, Spotify, or Podbean. We'll see you next time.